So a lot of times women will also show up with a pattern of the self-care, not having self-care or self-respect, right? Because their father was absent during their teenage years. Yeah, so I do notice that as a pattern too.
Hmm.
And so again, back to repairing that, it's just takes
Yeah.
consistent effort at working towards being more loving with yourself. And the more it's contagious, the more you care for yourself, the more it feels good and the more you want to do it more often.
Let's learn how our next guest gets up, dress up, and show up on purpose. Enjoy the episode. Hello, morning enthusiasts. Well, welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. You've heard me talking for the past 12 minutes with our elite guest. Today, I have the honor of introducing Andrea Firpo. She is.
Hello.
Hi, Andrea. Andrea is a psychic cheerleader who is focused on transformational healing by building awareness in the body and mind around the deep conditioning of emotional trauma. With a background in psychology, as in mine as well, in feng shui, plant medicine, reiki, and shamanism, and psychic energy healing, Andrea identified the underlying source of any patterns inhibiting and undermining your sense of value and worth. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Yeah, my
I'm so
pleasure.
happy to be here.
My pleasure. Looking forward to talk about what you do. Your energy is contagious. Let me
Oh,
just say.
oh, thank you. Yours is as well. We are just mirrors for each other, right?
Yeah, thank you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I want to know about what got you started. What was your journey like to where you are?
Yeah. So, a little bit about my background. I grew up with all three types of abuse, and that would be physical, emotional, sexual abuse throughout the history of growing up. And because of that, I overcame a lot of different traumatic events. And we were just talking about how that evolution of all of the people that helped me through that or didn't help me through that,
Yeah.
if I didn't always have help, but learning to traverse that landscape definitely gave me applicable skills to experience a lot of things that other people have experienced as well.
Mm-hmm.
And about, you could say that I've always been psychic. I've never really had mentorship until more recently in my life to actually learn how to develop my skills. But I am all water signs, and
Mm.
that is primarily psychic based. So, it just comes very naturally to me. And in my 30s, as I was trying to heal myself with the psychology component, I kept showing up at different periods of time throughout my life in a psychologist's office and asking for help. And they could help me see it, but for whatever reason, I couldn't heal the pattern.
Mm.
I couldn't integrate the lesson fully. And I knew there was something missing. And essentially, we weren't going deep enough to the real core root and tearing out that root from the ground, so to speak. We weren't completely hitting everything.
Right.
And in my evolution, my spiritual evolution, um, actually get diagnosed with something called Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune condition. And to really quickly discuss what that is, essentially, your autoimmune disease goes into overdrive, and your autoimmune system starts to attack itself. It attacks the body.
Wow.
So, in the case of Graves' disease, it's no different than Hashimoto's in the sense that it's attached to your thyroid. It's a thyroid condition. So it starts to attack the tissue in your thyroid, and that swells. And like, with anyone with a thyroid condition, you can grow something called a goiter on your neck, which is like the swelling of the tissue of your thyroid, right? We know how to treat that now, but that would be like the one of the ways that your body could react. But with Graves' disease, it also attacks the tissue behind your eye. So that begins to swell as well, and it pushes on your optic nerve, and you wake up overnight with different shaped eyes that almost bulge out of your head.
Wow.
And no one could see it. I went to my husband, I went to my esthetician, I went to everyone that I knew, and I said, can you see this in my eyes? And everyone said, no, I can't see what you're talking about. So I thought I was crazy there for a little bit. And it wasn't until I saw my mom 6 months later that she looked at me within 30 seconds and said, what's going on with your eyes? And I said, oh my God, you can see that.
Yep.
And said, I don't know what it is, but go to the doctor. Like we're trying to figure it out. She's like, something's definitely going on with you. And you have these symptoms, but you can't attribute them essentially to, or I didn't at least, I wasn't educated enough at the time about an autoimmune disease. And this one is more on the rare side. Long story short of it, I had a college roommate that lived in Portland, Oregon, and every time I came to visit her, I would come back home to San Francisco Bay Area where I lived at the time and would say to my husband and my daughter, I really want to move to Portland, Oregon. And they'd kind of, as a family member would who didn't really understand, say, yeah, that's great. That's awesome that you had a good time. But we're not moving, right?
Very different. There are very different cultures there.
Yeah. And so 8 years later, I get diagnosed with this autoimmune disease, and they're going to essentially, they're debating getting rid of my thyroid altogether and putting me on medication for the rest of my life, because what happens if Graves' disease goes untreated, there's this bell curve, and you essentially get stuck if you get on the other side of that bell curve, wherever the swelling is. So like the swelling doesn't go away, your eyes just kind of stay that way for the rest of your life if you don't heal it. Long story short, I was about to lose my eyesight.
Wow.
It presses so much on the optic nerve that there's a risk that you can lose your eyesight. And so my acupuncturist at the time, because I was into Eastern medicine and healing this from a really deep level, said to me, if you really want a lifestyle change, you need to move. And immediately my spirit team was like, Portland. And I was like, I'm moving to Portland, and nothing stopped me from getting here. I literally looked at my family and was like, I'm going and I'm making it happen, and it's going to happen. And it started this evolution of me healing myself. When I moved here to Portland,
they came with you, right?
Well, my husband, it took him 5 years. It took him till last fall to live here full time. For 5 years, he traveled back from Portland, Oregon, all the way down to San Francisco every single week for work for 4 days, and then would fly back home for 3 days to make it happen for us.
Yeah, that's a loving husband.
I know. There were some definite perks. I get to fly back and forth and visit, and we have a great place there too. So it was neat to be in two cities that I love, but I definitely love Portland more. I love the pace of Portland. And so I completely reinvented myself when I got here. I came from a tech industry. I came from, VC. I came from Silicon Valley. I've worked as a senior executive assistant and senior office manager in a completely different world for 20 years. And, in moving here and trying to heal myself, I stumbled upon energy work. And I'd already started it in San Francisco as a means to just heal myself. And the more I met certain mentors, they kept saying, oh, no, Andrea, you're supposed to be doing this. And I was like, no. What does a life coach even do? Right. And it was just this evolution of me healing myself, accumulating more tools, accumulating more knowledge, accumulating more self-development, all of it, where I really started to build out robust, programs, custom programs and custom, sessions for individuals.
Yeah.
And so initially I started out part-time, and I was still, this was like my passion, and I still worked full-time during the week. And then eventually I made it full-time 2 years ago. So
Congrats, congrats,
yeah, thank you.
congrats. Did you find it that your hectic lifestyle in the Bay Area as a VC, as an executive, that it really made it worse for you, the
Yeah.
stress level?
Yes. Yes, because I was working over 40 plus hours a week. Everything that we made, most of everything that we made went to our mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
The pace there is incredibly fast, and trying to keep up with everybody and go out with everybody, and, the expensive dinners, and
Yeah.
just, it's a very expensive place to live. And trying to keep up with that, I was young, and it was great that I was, but I was like burning a candle at both ends and just completely running on empty. And I had no idea. I was a mom, I was a wife, I was doing it all, right? I had no idea how to replenish myself. And we were talking about that earlier, right?
Yeah.
Self-care wasn't something that was even modeled to me. My mom's, not great at it
Mm-hmm.
herself.
Yeah.
So everything that I've learned has been accumulated on my own, and through my own investment in myself, through other mentorships, other coaching, energy work, all of it, everything that I've accumulated.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
is passed down from mothers to daughters that
For sure.
where the what is it? With caretakers, we're
Yeah.
to serve everyone else around the house, but they never really ourselves. We're on our feet all day, and then when everybody's taken care of and fed, then we get to, plop ourselves into a couch or into a bed, and that's it, and do it all over again. That cannot be, not even just fulfilling, but that cannot be a long-term strategy.
Well, you also have to get better at, and maybe this wasn't modeled to you either, and I mean you by like globally you,
Mm-hmm.
not just you specifically, Lydia, but I mean, like, maybe it was never modeled to you to even learn how to communicate what your needs are. Or
Right.
maybe you have an over domineering parent, or that's a narcissist that never even allows you to have needs, so you grew up completely confused as to what your needs might even be. You don't even know how to ask for them.
Yeah.
Or your experience, this from psychology, is that you had a parent that every time you asked for something, they literally like bit you on the hand.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't allowed to have needs. So like every time you asked for something, it's like, I don't know if I really want to, I don't have needs, never mind. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we learn through example, absolutely. And then that it just becomes a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just is our normal. We don't even know that we're doing it a lot of times, that's even inhibiting us or blocking us in some way. And so back to showing up in psychologist's office, their offices, they're incredibly useful. I've had some really talented people in front of me. Don't get me wrong. I've worked with some really great psychologists, but there was like this missing component. And I finally understood that we integrate lessons here as we incarnated in this lifetime. We evolve through an integration for the entire lesson. We learn on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a mental level, and on a spiritual level. And if we don't learn the lesson on all those four levels of our auric field, it's all attached,
Mm-hmm.
we essentially, it's still stuck.
Yeah.
It's still with us.
Yeah. There's a
We
very
haven't completely released it out of our space.
and I want to talk to you about the different patterns that can inhibit an individual from growing. But to go on your things, it talks about what you remember, what you hear, you forget, what you see, you remember, but what you do, you understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially if you're a kinesthetic learner, right?
Yeah.
As I if I do it, then I'm like, okay, I'm golden. I got this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ingrained. So
Uh-huh.
tell us about the some of the patterns that you see come up that inhibits us from growth.
Oh, geez. Well, essentially, your energetic field, if we agree, depending on where your core beliefs are, but if we agree that we're like a little energetic bubble, like if I go to the acupuncturist and they put a needle in my forehead, it tells my kidney or liver or an organ in my body to do something, right? It moves and shifts the energy through me. Well, I have this bubble around me and it's called my auric field. And I don't expect everybody to understand all of the components to that, but let's just say that that little bubble and your little bubble, we mix a little bit when I give you a hug. And I get a little bit of your energy, you get a little bit of mine. And by the end of the day, I've taken on everybody else's energy and I don't even know what is mine anymore or what is yours maybe, or that I've taken on some of your stuff and I didn't even realize that I was.
That is scary.
Yeah. So, the chair that you're sitting on, if you've never cleared that energetically,
Yeah.
Not to freak everybody out because we're used to it, but if, when I have a client, I clear the space and I clear the room and I do a lot of different procedures that couch would absorb everyone's energy that ever sat down on it, right? So like it's just kind of a residue because there's energy all around us. It's absorbed in everything because everything's living, right? Mm-hmm. So essentially, we're kind of bouncing off of each other. And what I teach clients, is, so back to what are some of the patterns? Well, we accumulate thoughts, pictures, feelings, and images in our energetic space that we can't see because we don't remember how to be clairvoyant. We only remember those skills kind of when we're children and babies, right? Yeah. Or closer to the dimension that we just came from. And so we still remember that. But as adults, we don't see that around us unless we have any training. And so, what do I see? I see some common denominators, but I would say that everyone stores baggage. Think of yourself as like a kitchen sponge, like if your mom got handed a kitchen sponge that you had to use for the rest of your life to wash all of your dishes, it'd be pretty dirty by now. Gross. That's what your auric field essentially is like. It's just absorbing stuff all of the time. Yep. Yeah. All of the time. And like we aren't taught how to energetically clear. So I know one of the things that you love to talk about is best morning routines. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I teach all of my clients is 3 very basic clairvoyant tools that I think that everyone should learn. Yeah. And there's something that I practice in the morning, and more than likely, if you've ever done a meditation, you've done one of the tools, and one of the tools is grounding. And the reason why grounding is important is because it connects me to something larger than me. It also allows for anything that's no longer of my highest good to get released out of my energetic space. It has somewhere to go. Okay. Yeah. And it filters, right? It's energetically kind of like a releasing, a place of release, if that makes sense. So then the second tool that I teach everyone, and this doesn't mean that you have to become a psychic. It's just they're like basic meditations with your eyes closed that you're envisioning. The second tool that I teach everyone is how to call their energy back to them. Because we spread our energy out, but energetically we never remember to ask for it to come back to us.
Well, so grounding, how do you do grounding?
Oh, I could definitely lead you through that, but it's a visualization technique that I teach you. Mm-hmm. The second thing is calling your energy back through something called an energetic golden sun, which is a representation over your crown chakra of your individual self, your higher self. And it's specific to you. How that shows up for you in your mind's eye is your representation of your highest self floating over your head. And you have a couple chakras through that too, but we're not going to go into that either way. And then the third thing that I teach people is how to create an energetic protection rose, which essentially gives you a little bit of a buffer between you and the rest of the world. And you could say, oh, it's a crazy world out there. I need protection from that energetically. And yes, you do. But let's also agree that you're not always at your your greatest
Mm-hmm.
either need.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm my highest good, and so I'm protecting the rest of the world from me too. It goes both ways. So I teach those three things, and I have everyone start with it first thing in the morning, because when we go to sleep, we go back to the spirit realm.
Mm-hmm.
That's what all of our dreams are. That's what we're experiencing. And when we wake up, it's like the most neutral will be all day. I haven't like been asked of anything. My kids haven't run
Right.
in. My partner hasn't asked for anything yet from me. I haven't read my email. I don't know how many likes I got on my Instagram post. None of that's happened yet.
Right.
So you're like the most neutral, unpolluted part of yourself is first thing in the morning. And that's why I think it's so important to do.
Yes, and
So
you do this every morning as well as part of your
I
morning
do.
routine?
I do other tools as well, but I start with those three tools. Yeah. And, sometimes it doesn't happen first thing in the morning, but I do get it in the morning before I work with anybody for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. And I have a bunch of different things that I do. And then the other thing that I do, that I have clients do, is I have them ask 2 questions first thing in the morning. And the first one is, how am I feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And I ask that they answer it honestly,
Yeah.
and with no judgment, and just say it for how it is. Like, I feel really effed up right now.
That's
Didn't
okay.
get enough sleep, or whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
just really state it honestly and don't edit yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And listen to that. You're building a dialogue with your inner child, right?
Yes.
Especially if you're a person that doesn't know your needs. This is an excellent exercise for you. And then second, I say, or I have them say to themselves, what do I need?
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, so I didn't get enough sleep last night. Okay, great. So how am I going to get that today? I'm going to go to bed earlier. I'm actually addressing it now. Now I'm listening to my inner child, and I'm also addressing what her need is, right?
Yeah.
I'm validating her speaking up, as opposed to like, shh, I got this.
Yeah.
And I pushed myself to the limit yet again the next day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are 2 major tools that I use on a daily basis. I'm always having a conversation with myself. I'm always checking in with myself.
It's
Absolutely.
it's crucial because
It's
we have negative thoughts. We say we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are negative. We have.
and so getting curious about that, like,
Mhm.
why am I feeling that right now? And that's starting a dialogue. If you haven't worked that muscle, it's starting a dialogue with yourself about that.
Mhm.
So when you have a reaction, you can literally say, huh, that sounded a lot like my mom.
Yeah.
Is that me, or is that my mom?
Yeah.
Like, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the conversation, the dialogue is happening anyway, but why not be cognizant and
Yeah.
flip the switch so that it is positive, so that you're aware of what you're actually feeling.
Yes.
It's crucial. Do you,
Yes.
I had experienced some trauma growing up as a child, and my way of coping is I shut down. I was
Hmm.
mute for about a year and a half, where I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. If it did, it was out of necessity. And
Uh-huh.
so, do you find it with trauma patients that, well, actually, the question is, how do you overcome trauma? How can one overcome trauma?
In my opinion, we touched on this, but so trauma is, I mean, the basic definition of trauma is, for those who are listening, is, in my perspective, and what I've taught, and what I've been taught, and what I've learned, is what a child perceives as anything less than loving.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean that the parent necessarily didn't think that they were being loving in that moment.
Yeah.
If Johnny runs out in the street and I overreact, and I think the best thing to do is, like, send him to a timeout because he wasn't listening to me. And Johnny is traumatized about this experience. I mean, it's the end of the world for him. And he stores that experience of like his mom being upset. All of that is more traumatic, obviously, from his perspective. Yeah. So if he stores that on an energetic basis. He also stores it emotionally. Mm-hmm. And he also stores it in his body physically. Yeah. And then he remembers it. So all of these 4 levels need to be cleared. I've got to understand why it happened. I've got to actually see that it happened. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So if I sit down in an office with you, you explain that to me. It's like, okay, yeah, I see that. I remember that happening. Thank you for validating that. Okay, I see that's where I picked that up. Okay. Emotionally, I've got to heal that, right? If I've never spoke about it, or I've never looked at it or listened to my child or done any work with my inner child and healed that. Yeah. Right. So on the emotional level, really grieving it or feeling the feelings surrounding it and really allowing those feelings to be seen and released. Yeah. Because the only way through is by actually going through it, right? You can't avoid it.
So just identifying the blockage.
Exactly. And that I have a talent for. I absolutely have a talent for getting at the root, right? The cause. And then, you need to heal it on a spiritual level, right? Mm-hmm. On the energetic level, you need to actually energetically remove it out of your space too, and be willing to let go of it as well. We hold on to a lot of things because we're used to the story being that way.
That can be hard. That is very challenging. If it was easy, everyone would do it, right?
Yeah. Well, if I identify with my story, if that's part of who I am, mm-hmm. maybe I'm not ready for a new version of me yet.
That's the scary part, because you know who you are, but you don't know who you could become. And, right. And a lot of people, like the brain doesn't like change, especially drastic change. So it likes to hold on to what's familiar. So the story is familiar. It's like on it's on replay.
Yeah. Easy, yeah.
It's on replay, and you hear the same story.
Easier. I mean, it's not easier because it's very...
The consequences, the risk.
Yeah, there's so many consequences, but you're used to the consequences, so you're like, this is easy, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And a great example that comes to mind when you said that is like, if you do what is hard, life will be easy. If you do what is easy, life will be hard. And I think about a lot.
I love that.
Yeah, because a lot of people, we don't do the deep work. We don't, and therefore life is hard.
Well, and I think that you also get to a place. I mean, you could say on a spiritual level, you get, you get to midlife, what is considered midlife, right? And you make a decision, I believe, as a soul. I believe that you make a decision on either, one, this is how life is and it will never change, and so you never change, you accept. Yeah. Right? Or you decide before that midlife or around that midlife, there is so much more to life than this, and you choose to change. But you definitely make one choice or the other, and you can see it in people.
Midlife crises.
Yeah, well, but you can also see the people who... Yeah, well, you can also see the people that get to the other side of it and have given up on life, right? Mm-hmm. This is just how it is. It will always be like this. You don't understand. This is what has happened to me since I was 5. And... I'm going to justify it for the rest of my life. A lot of people at their midlife decide one of two things. Either I'm going to change and I'm going to go out and buy a Porsche to celebrate, or, I'm not going to change, right?
Yeah, it's pretty scary. There's the fact that you live on an autopilot. You go to the office, you go do the 9 to 5. You are unhappy, but you've accepted it. You've come to terms with it. When I was there, I was suicidal because I was like, if this is it, if this is what
I have nothing to look forward to,
that's it. It's not even worth it. Because it was because I was stuck. It was because I couldn't begin to look beyond my circumstances because I feel like I didn't have what it takes to be like the entrepreneur, to have the lifestyle, to travel the world, to have the
Right.
great fiance, to
Right.
have all the things that I envisioned, all the things that I want for my life, but don't
Right.
see it as my reality.
Right.
And
Right.
mm,
Only other people get that.
yeah, and
Because they're better than me, or they're smarter than me, or they have more skills than me, or they've been doing it longer, or how am I even going to compete, or all of the negative self-talk,
they're more
right?
outgoing than I am. They're a different skin color than I am. You
I'm
name it.
an introvert. I'm an introvert.
You name it, I came up with it with the excuses. And it kept me safe. It kept me in my bubble, but at what
Yes.
cost?
Yes.
Because I was
Yes.
very unhappy. And even I ended up developing adrenal fatigue, which goes undiagnosed as well, where you're wired but tired, your cortisol levels are spiking up and down, and your
That's
blood
Graves'
sugars.
disease too. Graves' disease too. You wear out your adrenal glands. That's the whole reason why you get Graves' disease, is because you go hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, and you keep bouncing back and forth, and you don't listen. Your body's like, slow
Yep.
down. Okay, I'll speed up now. Okay, slow down. Yes.
And so you want to keep pushing it, and you end up you physically you shut down.
Yeah, well, and the universe is essentially like, excuse me, I've been trying to get your attention, but you're not listening, right? I've got to make something huge and cataclysmic to get your attention, apparently, because the first 30 times I tried to tell you, you just were like, no, sorry, I'm going to keep walking off the cliff.
Especially if you're stubborn, because that also comes from not trusting yourself. Not
Yes.
trusting that inner voice, because you don't spend enough time with yourself, right? You don't
That's
know
right.
who you are, so therefore you don't listen. You can't listen. I don't trust this inner voice telling me it's time to take a break, it's time to relax, it's time to chill.
Right.
And
Right.
there's not that trust relationship that's going on innately, because I don't have self-care. I don't value myself enough. I don't think I'm worthy. No, they can't be talking about
Or
me.
have guilt around it, because I was taught that that's selfish. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many women I work with who consider self-care being selfish. Like, I tell them what self-care is, and they're like, that's being selfish. I'm like, no. You come first. You are the cake. Everyone else is the frosting. You are the cake.
Yeah.
They're the frosting.
What happens if you fall ill? If
Yeah.
if you're sick, you're no good to nobody.
Absolutely. It's no different than when we are on a plane flight and they're like, put on your oxygen mask and then your kid's mask next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What good are you to them if you're passing out?
Yeah. That sense of self-care is important, and I think a lot of people miss it because of lack of worthiness. They don't deserve it. They're not worthy enough. And so how does one go about building that sense of worthiness so that they can embrace self-care?
Practice. Right? I'm 46 years old. It took me 46 years to be like this. If I start something new today, I'm not going to expect that tomorrow I'm going to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to fumble. I can't remember. There's like I don't know if it's a fable or a story, but essentially it goes like this. And maybe I can find it for you and you can put it in the show notes or whatever, but it's essentially like, I walk down the street, there's a huge hole in front of me, I fall into it and blame everyone around me. I walk down the street, I see the big hole, I fall into it, but this time, it's progressive, and eventually, like, you walk around the hole, and then eventually you turn left and you don't even go down that street. So there's a progression. Don't be patient with yourself when you're implementing new tools and you're upgrading, when you're being coached or you're being mentored or you're open to new change. Don't expect it to change overnight. You have a lot of practice in the other direction.
Right.
So I like to give people space to show up for who they are today, right?
Yeah. And to
just
be
know that you're working towards something.
Yeah.
And that sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's not. And there's an ebb and flow to it. Sometimes you get 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, but keep going.
Right. Be patient. Be patient with yourself. And it's that love, right? You got to be loving towards yourself and understand that you are still standing and that you have what it takes.
You can be your own best friend.
Mm-hmm.
I call myself the psychic cheerleader, but I always tell my clients, like, pretend I was sitting there with you. right? So I do something called run your energy, right? I'm running your energy. I'm making it move faster throughout your body. And because of that, it's releasing things out of your energetic space. And because of that, things are being brought to the surface.
Yeah.
So you could be, in the middle of a conversation and just start to get emotional and you don't know why. And it's like, just remember I told you that this was a possibility. We ran your energy. We're releasing things out of your space. If you're seeing it now, that means that you're releasing it. Just remember I said that. And if I'm next to you and I was in the room, what would my reaction to that be? Treat yourself like that. I would say to you, it's totally okay that you're crying right now.
Right.
I see you. You got this. You're beautiful. Keep going.
Yeah.
So do that for yourself.
Yeah. And there's a really good quote that I love. It says, we should start talking to ourselves as if we're talking to a lover.
Yes.
It's really like we are so kind and towards a lover. We are so soft, but we're so critical with ourselves. We're so harsh. We're so curt. We're so impatient with ourselves. But when especially the first stages of falling in love, it's all about them, and it's all the sweet nothings.
Yes.
That gets whispered.
If we start to, self-love, and this as well, especially for a woman, like self-love, self-respect, self-care, all of that has a lot to do also with their relationship with their father when we're teenagers.
Really?
And so if your father is absent or not present in your life, you don't develop a relationship to how to be cared for, how to be loved, how to be respected, how all of that interplay between relationships, right? The opposite sex, right? Yeah. So a lot of times women will also show up with a pattern of the self-care, not having self-care or self-respect, right? Because their father was absent during their teenage years. Yeah, so I do notice that as a pattern too. Mm-hmm. And so again, back to repairing that, it's just takes consistent effort. Yeah. Consistent effort at working towards being more loving with yourself, and it's contagious. The more you care for yourself, the more it feels good, and the more you want to do it more often, right?
Mm-hmm. I tell myself in the mirror, I love you. I accept you just as you are. I'm talking to a loved one.
I love it. I love it. I have I love you on my mirror too.
Kindred spirits we are, everyone.
Totally. It's in the smile. It's in the smile.
I want to share with you, touch on what you just said about not having a father figure in your life growing up and how that affects your relationship, especially with a male. And mm-hmm. for me, my dad moved to the country, to the States, left Haiti when I was 6 years old. So I didn't see him, and I didn't have the father figure in my life. And so until college, I was like, I am missing something. And I didn't connect it with my dad, and we didn't talk, we didn't have a relationship. So college, the year before I graduated college, I was like, if I want a healthy relationship with a man ever, I have to fix this relationship with my dad. And I reached out. I went to visit him. I got to know him. He came to my graduation, and it had been over 15 years since I've seen him. I made the effort to travel to Florida and go meet my father after 15 years and see him. Didn't have a communication whatsoever. And I knew this would impact my life, my relationship. And you are absolutely correct. It does.
It repairs it.
Yeah.
Because you have to heal. Even in your ancestral history, that's something that I look at when I work with my clients. And in your ancestral history, we're not only healing you, but we're healing back in your ancestry. As you integrate this lesson, you integrate it for your mother, you integrate it for your mother's mother, you integrate it up the line. Interesting. When you heal a lesson. Interesting. Especially if it's been handed down to you ancestrally. If it's a pattern through all of the women, mm-hmm. and it got handed to you ancestrally, when you heal and integrate that lesson karmically, it heals up the line.
And we're talking about
because it's not being passed.
And we're talking about breaking, what do we call it? Some curses, genetic curses,
Not necessarily genetic
not
curses, ancestral history.
history, just
Yeah,
the history.
ancestral history that's been passed down through your ancestry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certain lessons that the women in your family have brought to learn here, and if essentially they didn't get it, it gets passed on
I
to the
see.
next generation.
I see.
That's inherent.
Generational curses is the word I was looking for.
Yeah, well, okay, that might be a different way of wording it, but essentially inheriting
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
ancestral karma,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Where
And
it's a
so
good.
when you heal that in this lifetime, you're healing up the line. That's our goal in our evolution,
It's like
right?
no pressure.
Well, the universe doesn't judge. It's not good. There is no good or bad. That's a human construct, right? So, if you die without having learned the lessons that you came here, that's okay. That's your evolution. No one's keeping track of that necessarily. You come back, you want to be here because you want this experience. You want to be learning these things.
Yeah.
And I believe that we come here for this enrichment opportunity, right?
Yeah.
As a soul.
Yeah. The soul wants to explore. The soul wants to experience the
Ex-
beauty.
exactly, of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, if we don't get it right, there is no getting it right necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
right? We just essentially continue to evolve, and we either choose to come back and continue on our path or
Yeah.
not. That's our evolution process.
That's deep, very profound.
Well, that's what I've been taught. Those are what the information that I receive as well, and that's just how I believe, or what I believe.
That is fantastic. Andrea, how do we connect with you?
You can connect with me on my website, which is psychiccheerleader.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm primarily for social media. I mean, I'm on almost every platform, but I'm the most active on Instagram, and that's Psychic Cheerleader as well. You can find me through, yeah, either way.
Okay.
If you want to me directly, you can go to my website as well.
Yeah, I will definitely put that on the show notes. Now, for your morning routine, you told me you did the grounding, you called the energy back, and you
Do an
energy
energy
protection.
Yes.
Anything else a part of your morning routine you want to share with us?
Those two questions.
Oh yeah. How do I feel, and what do I need?
What do I need? Exactly. And let's see. Is there anything else? I wrote down some notes. What else do I do in the morning? I do a number of tools that just is going to sound, if you haven't been to clairvoyant training, then it might sound a little bit foreign, but I also run my energy. I told you I clear my space. I clear my space physically. I mean, there's plenty of tools that you can use. You can use a selenite wand, which is essentially a stone that has a neutral charge to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you run that over your body like an eraser. So you're clearing your energy. You can use sage or any smudging, right? Palo Santo, burning smoke, essentially can do the same thing. And you can do that to your space and your environment too, because remember we talked about the energy that's around you. Tone will clear the space as well. That's why Tibetan singing bowls or crystal bowls are so beautiful to listen to, but they're also energetically vibrating at a rate that they're clearing your energy space too, and will clear the room as well. So if you have a singing bowl or a little Tibetan bowl, using that, or using bells, or so there's a lot of different things that I implement. Gosh, I'm like queen of self-care.
That's fantastic.
Those are some of the things I do first thing in the morning. Yes,
I've heard of people burning candles.
Yeah.
Lighting candles.
Yeah, setting intention.
Mm-hmm.
I do an affirmation every single day on my Instagram. So if anyone follows me, I share what my affirmation is for the day.
Oh,
Every single month, we're rotating through each chakra. So we're helping clear out your energy centers throughout your body by saying that affirmation out loud. And you probably understand I don't need
oh
to tell
yeah.
you the healing benefits of saying affirmations. And when I do an affirmation, I place a sticky note on my mirror. Now, I don't do this every day, but if there's one that really resonates with me that I'm working on
Yeah.
building,
Yeah.
I put it on a sticky note on my bathroom mirror. And then after I brush my teeth in the morning, I say it out loud 5 times.
Yeah.
And I look at myself in the mirror because my inner child is always listening and I'm having a dialogue. The reason why that's important is because you're showing up and you're seeing and hearing what your inner child never heard from the parent.
I see.
So you're repairing that. So, if you're saying, I love you,
Mm-hmm.
the first time you might say it in the mirror, you're like, ha 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 ha, that's real funny. And the second time and the third time and whatever, you might show up one day and you're like, I don't know if I love you today. Right?
Don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact.
You're gonna rotate all of your energetic, all of the things that are attached to you believing that you love yourself. Everything is being processed as you're saying it every time you show up for it.
Let me tell
And so
you.
I have people continue to repeat that affirmation until they actually identify with the words.
Let me tell you. It was weird. You're absolutely right. At first, it was weird. It was uncomfortable because I grew up in a home where we never said I love you.
Yes.
Parents never shared it. You just know, I love you. And when I told my grandmother I love her, she says thank you as a response, because we don't do that. You're supposed to know they love you by, because they
Right.
put roof over
Just,
your head and
you
give
know.
and give
You
you
just
food.
know.
Yeah, it never comes out. So I was never able to tell a guy I love them, and vice versa. And if they did tell me, I was suspicious. Like, what are you after? What do you want?
What do you need from me?
Yeah. I'm not
What does that
weak-minded.
mean?
Yeah. And so when I first started saying I love you to myself, it was weird as heck. And there were days I wouldn't make eye contact. I'm not kidding. Don't make eye contact.
Yes.
Just say it. And
Yes.
now when I say it and I look at myself deep in the eye, in the mirror, even if I'm driving, I say I love you. There is that feeling that this inner child you talked about responds and says I love you too. And then there's that courage that kicks in, the strength that kicks in, where you are both in alignment. You are both saying the same thing, and then you got it.
Yes. And it feels true.
Yeah.
It finally feels true. It's authentic.
Yeah, I even do it looking at a picture of myself, right? I look at a picture of an old picture of myself.
You're like, Lunid, you are the bomb. I love you.
You rock.
I love you.
Keep up the good work.
You're awesome, Lunid.
But if I don't toot my own horns, who's going to do it?
Yes. Did your mom teach you that too?
No. I had to learn that on my own because
Okay,
I am
I
told
learned other things. I learned other things, but my mom did teach me that. Yes.
No one's gonna tell you if you don't feel love for yourself. It shows to other people. Out of the heart flows, whatever you're feeling.
Absolutely. Even in your body language.
Yeah.
Even in the way you walk, even in the way that you talk, the way you present yourself, how you're speaking about yourself, how you're expressing yourself out in the world.
You attract people because people are like, what is it about you?
Yeah.
Why are you so happy?
I put my finger on it, but why?
Yeah, why are you so happy? Even like at work.
I love myself.
I know, because I said that this morning. You have no idea. I've been talking to the mirror for 2 years now.
If only you could have seen me 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. You would not want to be near me. But there's an aura about you. The same way you listen to my podcast and you say, she sounds so happy without not having met me. The way you walk, the way you carry yourself, it speaks confidence. It speaks like I'm worthy. I love myself. I know my worth. And
Yes.
there's a lot of times where, especially in the past few months, I've been so busy with the podcast because I still have my 9 to 5.
I
And
know, you're so great.
yeah, and I have my app that I'm developing for morning routine habits. And so I've just been like in the grunt work. Like I just want to focus on, I have so many emails. I'm working with 5 different people internationally. I'm doing this, doing that. But people find it to stop me in my tracks and want to have a conversation with me. And then I'm amazed of what comes out because
Yeah.
it's genuine, it's
Yeah.
real, and these people just, they sense this aura, they sense this energy about me, and they're like, I don't know
We
what you're
feel it.
doing. They do feel it. We transfer. We do.
Of course. We feel it.
They,
It's like that creepy uncle that you had show up at holidays and your mom's like, hey, give him a hug goodbye. And you're like,
mm-hmm.
We do feel each other. Of course we do. And we're socially programmed to override our intuition on things all the time. That's why we don't trust it.
Yeah.
We don't trust it because we have overridden it. We have been unloyal to ourselves many times.
It's a quiet, still voice, and if it gets overwritten long enough, you don't hear it.
That's right.
You cannot hear it if you're not silent, if you're not focused, if you're not turning inward. You will miss it, and that has happened. But
absolutely.
You have been a blessing tonight. I have
thank you.
Taking way too much of your time. I thank you so much for sharing and coming on the show tonight. It really has been refreshing.
Oh, thank you so much. You are so kind. Yeah. And I loved getting to know you too. You're so smart. And you have so much joy. You're right. You're just a pleasure to be around. And I loved being on your show. So thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity.
My pleasure. You added tremendous value.
Thank you.
The 5 things that I'm going to summarize for my listeners is the grounding piece that you talk about, to clearing out your energy, and also after releasing it, because we are a bundle of energy with frequencies. That's what binaural beats all about. You can
right.
You hear the frequencies and we become elevated. The bowls you were talking about, that is frequency. That's who we are. We are energy. Mm-hmm. And so we do pick up a lot of energy throughout the day, and a lot of it is not ours.
That's right.
It's not our own, and we, sometimes you just gotta shake it off. Rub the person off because you just don't want what they have. And people, because we're transferring energy, we're giving good and bad.
Yeah.
And so getting grounded, you mentioned, and then you talked about calling back the energy once you release it, because calling back what is good, what the energy that you need to feel whole. And then and then the last one you talked about was energy protection. And I love that you said it's not just universe or the world protecting us, but also protecting ourselves, protecting other people from ourselves.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we don't wake up 100% every day.
Every single day.
There are more days I'm very more curt and more direct and less loving and less patient. And in those days I have to take a step back and realize I need to protect the people around me. So whatever that may be, do I need to go for a run? Do I need to go expel some energy?
Exactly.
What do I need to do?
There's multiple ways to release it. But what that does, what I'm interested in teaching people, and it sounds like you are too, is empowering people in their space, right? I have more control over me than I do the rest of the world.
Yeah.
The more I'm focused on how I feel and how I'm doing energetically, the less I need to worry about the rest of the world outside of me.
Absolutely.
I don't need to manage all of that if I'm actually managing myself.
And if you manage yourself, you show up better. I love to say, how do you get up, dress up, and show up? How do you show up in the world? Is it your best self?
Right.
Can it be improved? We can always improve, but we got to have the tools in place. And I love your follow-up questions of, what am I feeling, right? Because it keeps you present. It keeps you honest with yourself. And it's okay to feel like you want to tear somebody up.
That's right. To be honest
about it. It's okay to be like, I am really upset about how this situation is planning out.
Totally.
And that has been empowering for me, because I've been so introverted and sometimes passive too. Because I'm so quick to please other people that when something bothers me, I don't state it. I don't let it know. I let it be known.
Yeah.
But recently,
so you're blocked in your throat chakra.
Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
you're all choked up. I know that feeling. Like you
Right.
want to speak, but you can't. It can't come out, and then you
Yep.
can't find the words for it to
Yep.
come out. But the woman I am becoming, Andrea, will tell you. Will tell you she is the force not to be reckoned with. She is. She's lovely. She's nice, but she now speaks her mind. I
Oh,
remember
I'm so glad.
I had a situation with my fiance. It was this weekend, and he just said two words, and for some reason, I feel like he was projecting something
Uh-huh.
over to me that wasn't mine. It was all
Uh-huh.
his. And I said, "Are you questioning my commitment?" It was about a business. We have a business venture that we're doing. And he was like, "I want to know where you stand. You haven't been involved." I was like, "We both haven't been involved. So what do you mean? Are you questioning my commitment? That's what I feel you're doing. Don't do that again." And it was like it came up. I didn't have to think about it. Usually I have to go sleep on it. I have to write it 3 times. I have to double check it and then send it, take it back. It just came up because I know I know my worth. I know what I'm
Yeah.
I'm asking myself that question is how do I feel, and then
Yeah.
actually expressing it in the
Yeah.
moment as it happens, and not like waiting 10 days later or sugarcoating it
That's right.
for
I
them.
applaud you.
Thank
I
you.
applaud you for the
Hard
work you've done around that.
hard work.
I
But
know.
I'm a
It's
lot
so
happier for it.
differently.
I'm a lot happier for it. So my thing is for our listeners, if you do the work, you will be happier for it because what's on the other side is joy.
Better.
Is
It's so much
success.
better.
It's
Yeah.
it's livelihood. It's like I can't euphoria. I can't even
Mm-hmm.
explain it, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep pushing through it because once you go over that threshold, your life will change. And then the last question that you do ask is, what do you need? You gotta
Yeah.
identify. You gotta know what you need. It's almost
Yeah.
like setting goals, right? You can't hit a target you don't have.
That's right.
And so, what do you
And if
need?
you're not even having the conversation, how do you know what to hit?
You don't.
Right?
You
Yeah.
don't. And
You're
so
just flying blind.
you
You're
are.
going through your day and the next day and the next day and the next
And
day.
you're exhausted. You're burnt out. I was talking to my aunt earlier today. It's her birthday, and she's just turned 37, and she's like, "I'm burnt out. I can't
Mhm.
work anymore." I'm like, "You're 37. You just bought a house. You have to work."
Get to work.
But I also told her like, you're burnt out because hard working doesn't necessarily lead to success. You
Yeah.
are working hard. You've been working hard for over 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Yes, but now it's time to ask the question, what do you need? What is it what's your purpose?
Yeah.
What do you do that makes you happy?
Right.
The advice I gave her, I gave my audience is start journaling. Start
Yeah.
asking those questions that you
Yes.
mentioned, but also journaling and listening
Yeah.
to what
Yes.
comes up.
Yes. Well, that's what you're doing. You're getting really clear. Once you get really clear on what you want, I mean, I tell people this, it's no different than like writing an essay to get into college and like filling out all of the paperwork and applying and all of those things. As you start to take steps towards action, the universe is like, oh, that's what you want?
Yep.
Okay, let's move around some stuff.
Yep.
It may not show up exactly how you had it pictured, but I probably have a better plan than you, so just let it happen.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the beauty, though. The universe is at our command. We just
Yeah.
have to have a definite purpose. We just have to have a goal, and then it's gonna show up in their own accord. That's what I'm experiencing, and
Yes.
I like to say I wake up high on life every day
Yes. Yes.
because it's just beautiful how it works once you get out of your own way.
That's right. Because you're magnifying, that's how you manifest. You're magnifying that. You're essentially speaking things into existence. You're doing things into existence all day long, right? Everything's just getting magnified. And when you get really clear, if you make a list of what you want in a partner,
Yeah.
you get very clear. You're like, oh, that
There
just
he
made
is.
it a lot easier. I think I'm going out and looking for it. And the universe is like, oh, yeah, but I knew that this person was over here. Here, let me push them clear so you're ready.
Oh, that's a great story, and that's how I met my fiance.
Right.
I made a
You
list
got
of.
really clear.
I got really clear about like even the smile, the white teeth, just like personality. I got really detailed. The list was about 30 items on that list, front and back. And then when he did show up, I didn't recognize him because
Uh-huh.
I put on the list I wanted him to be white. When he showed up, he was black, so I didn't recognize him, but he had all the
You're
other
like,
traits.
no, this won't do for me. The universe is like, are you sure? Because I'm
Yeah.
kind of upgraded and it's a little bit better. Are you sure?
But because you attract what you're looking for. What you're seeking is seeking you. That's the beauty.
Also seeking you.
That's the beauty. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we can talk forever. I will not.
I know. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. You have a blessed evening.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please comment and tell us what was your favorite part, your favorite habit that you are going to try out for yourself today. Comment below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I will see you at the top of your best morning routine ever. Stay blessed.